Today, on episode 10, I'll be hanging ribs in my Weber Smokey Mountain and comparing it to the pit barrel cooker. Well, here we are, back on the road to Ribtown, a series that documents my journey of learning all there is to know about smoking ribs. On this trip, I'm looking at something that has captivated the barbecue community for at least the last few years. That's smoking ribs by hanging them vertically directly over hot coals in an upright drum. Now, this method of cooking is not really new. In fact, it's been around for a while, but its late resurgence and growth in popularity has been spurred on by the well-priced pit barrel cooker. Coming in at only $299, the PBC uses this very hook and hang method, which, according to the manufacturer and its owners, imparts a wonderfully unique flavor on things like ribs when their juices are allowed to drip directly onto hot coals. And since this series is all about learning new ways to cook ribs, I really wanted to try this. I wanted to see if it was worth all the hype. But do I need a pit barrel cooker? I mean, I already own its biggest competitor, the equally priced 18.5-inch Weber Smokey Mountain. Just look at these two. They're both vertical cookers, nearly the same height, and they both measure 18.5 inches in diameter, so they offer roughly the same amount of real estate. And sure, they're meant to do different things, but if there was just some way to hang ribs in my WSM, couldn't I duplicate the effects of the PBC, or at the very least get similar results? But how? Well, it just so happens that Justin, a Baby Back Maniac, did a video on how to hang ribs on his WSM with a rack made by Weber, of course. And sure, it was made for cooking fish or sausage, but it worked for ribs. And not only did Justin say it was one of his favorite ways to cook them, but it did impart a unique flavor as well. Awesome, I thought I'll just buy that and see how it compares to the PBC. Unfortunately, Weber, for some dumb reason, decided to stop manufacturing these racks right in the middle of this vertical pit barrel cooking craze. And though I tried my best to find one online, everyone was sold out. I mean everyone. Well, except for this guy and his 600% markup. Wow. But after a few weeks and a little research, I discovered that Gateway Drum Smokers makes a solid rib hanging rack for their 30-gallon UDS, which fits the 18.5-inch WSM. So, for $45 plus shipping, I ordered one, and here it is. As you can see, it's one solid piece, stainless steel, well constructed, and comes with 6 hooks. But most importantly, it fits like a glove on the WSM. I mean, look at this thing. You can spin it around. I'm telling you, it feels super sturdy on the tabs that would support the upper grate. It's awesome. And so now I can hang ribs just like the pit barrel cooker. Alright, so here in my charcoal ring are 145 briquettes of Kingsford Blue charcoal, which, according to my understanding, is the manufacturer's recommendations on how to set up the PBC. Now, I'm doing this because A, using the same amount of fuel will give us a good comparison on temps, and B, since both charcoal rings are the same diameter, this also gives us equal surface levels. Now, I'm pulling out 35 briquettes just to get them lit. Once they're white hot, I'm going to dump them back in the center of the ring. Now for smoke today, I'll be adding 2 medium-sized chunks of cherry, which is becoming really one of my favorites for cooking ribs. Now all 3 vents on the bottom are a quarter of the way open, and the one on the top is 100% open. And I'm going to drop in a probe through the open top vent just to get a second opinion on temperatures within the smoker. Alright, so today I'm smoking 2 racks of baby backs from Smithfield. Now I dry brined these overnight, and I just seasoned them with Amazing Ribs Memphis Dust Rub. Now to hang these ribs, we're going to run the hook between the second and third bone of the meatier section of the rack. That way that hook has more grip to hold onto the rack so it won't fall into the smoker. So after about 20 minutes, I figured the WSM is settled in around 220 something, if you split the difference there. Going to get these ribs on and hang them in the smoker opposite of each other. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to open the fuel door here just for a moment to take a look inside to see how close these ribs are to the coals. Once some of the smoke clears out of here, you can see they're probably about 3 to 4 inches away. Alright? Gonna come back here in an hour. Alright, so here we are after 1 hour. The dome is reading just under 250, and I can't quite remember what the probe is at. But what I'm going to do here is something you cannot do with the pit barrel cooker. I'm going to rotate the rack about a quarter of a turn. And this may not seem like a big deal, but it will help to ensure even cooking. And it's worth mentioning that Malcolm Reed does this very same thing. Although he turns his every 20 minutes, personally I think that's a bit much, so I'm just going to stick to doing this every hour. 2017 marked the 100th anniversary of North Carolina's most unique soft drink, cheerwine. And since this is the last weekend of the year, I thought it'd be best to incorporate its legacy in this cook. So I'm going to baste or spray the ribs with it for the first few hours. And now you may notice that I'm using the eye hole of a barbecue tool to pick up these hooks that are holding on the ribs. Well, that's because they're hot and they're kind of hard to handle. Now I could have purchased some sort of tool for this or spent probably $2 at the hardware store to build one, but why? I'm cheap and this works fine. Anyways, once these ribs are completely sprayed or basted, I'm going to put them back in the smoker. See you back here in an hour. Alright, so here we are at the 2-hour mark, and you can see the probe and the dome thermometer are way off. The dome's around 240 and the probe's at 313. This is probably due to the wire of the probe just dangling crooked in there and up against the wall. There's no way it's going to be that hot in there. The dome would certainly be reading a little higher than it is. So I'm not too concerned about it. Going to spray the ribs down on both sides again with some cheerwine. Once that's done, I'm going to rotate the rack a quarter turn, come back here in one more hour. Alright, so here we are at hour 3, and as you can see, the probe is now more in line with the dome thermometer. The difference now being maybe 30 degrees or so. And I have to be honest, at this point, I did debate leaving the ribs hanging for the remainder of the cook, but I decided to go ahead and wrap them. I'm just preferring to wrap ribs when I can rather than not. And it's for a number of reasons. And the old Texas crutch reason, being that it speeds up the cook time, it's not one of them. I do it because it preserves the color of the ribs. You see, if they're left unwrapped, that mahogany color turns to like a black cherry. They're not burnt, they just don't look as good. And when you wrap, or at least when I do, I like to incorporate a few ingredients so that during the wrap, the ribs braise in not only their own juices, but in things that add to the flavor profile. Things like honey and brown sugar. And after that wrap time is complete, you can drain off all those juices and either reapply them as a glaze, or add them to your favorite barbecue sauce to really give it some pop and competition quality finish. That's why I wrap. Now, as you can see, just the very end of our ribs are charred. A little less than I thought, honestly. But they look good and they smell amazing. Now, for the wrap today, I'm going to be using some light brown sugar, some parquet, mango habanero Texas pepper jelly, and some sriracha honey. I'm going to evenly spread a bed of all these ingredients on the foil and lay the ribs on it, meat side down, and then repeat the process on the underside. Now, I know in my last video I was unsure about the Texas pepper jelly, but it was more so because of the cost. But I have to say, it's some good stuff. I've used it a few more times and I really think it shines like in a wrap or an additive to barbecue sauce. So if you can find it, or you just feel like making the purchase, I do think it's worth it. And that sriracha honey, wow. Its sweet heat is just perfect for ribs. Now, I'm not sure how good it'll be on a biscuit, but for this purpose alone, it's worth it. Alright, so once these ribs are double wrapped, I'm going to put them back on the smoker. And what I'm doing here is not anything that couldn't be done on the pit barrel cooker. I'm just simply removing the rib rack and inserting the upper grate. Now the whole meat side up, meat side down debate, that's just going to have to be another video. Today, we're going meat side down for 45 minutes, any more than an hour, and I think these ribs would be mush. After 45 minutes of being on the smoker wrapped, it's time to get these ribs off, unwrap them, and drain that wonderful juice. Alright, so to check to see how far the ribs are coming along, I'm going to do the old bend test, grab them halfway down and give them a bounce to see if they crack. They're not cracking, so they're not done. And you can see the color has not changed since when I wrapped them. That's the whole process of the foil. It's a good reason why you wrap. It keeps that gray color. And check out the internal temperature midway down the rack with a thermopen. Shows they're in the low 180s, so no, they're not there yet. So as I expected, I'm going to put them back on the smoker horizontally, and I'll see you back here in about 30 minutes. Alright, so while we're waiting, we're going to make our barbecue sauce. We're going to start by heating up that juice we got from the rib wrap. And to add to it, we're going to use some North Carolina's own Kakalaki cheerwine sweet sauce. It says it's sweet, but it smells like SpaghettiOs. Anyways, going to use this 50-50 with the juice we got from the rib wrap. All I'm trying to do here is heat the sauce. I don't want it to boil. If it boils, the sugars in the sauce will burn and become bitter. So if you're doing this at home, just keep stirring it on a low heat. Don't let it boil. If it does, no bueno. Now that it's been 30 minutes, it's time to check the ribs again for doneness using the bend test. Gonna grab them halfway down, slight bounce. You can see some small cracks in this one. In this one, big cracks. No question. It's done. Gonna use the thermopen here to check the internal temperature of the ribs in various spots. All of the readings here are just over 200, which tells me that they're done. It also tells me that the sections that were closer to the coals or in the beginning of the cook are warmer by about 5 or 10 degrees. So it's not really unexpected, I guess, but they are cooking faster than the top. You know, which makes sense. Now, because the sauce is warm, it doesn't adhere to a brush very well. So I decided here just to gently and easily pour some onto the ribs and then brush it on where it needs to be. And once I have it applied to both sides, I'm going to let the ribs just sit on the smoker for about 5 or 10 minutes so the sugars can caramelize and the sauce can tack up nicely. Alright, so here's the finished product. As you can see, they look amazing. Fantastic color, great sheen. You know, a lot of that is not credit to do with this style of cooking. It has to do with the wrap process. You know, you can add something to your sauce to make it shiny, like Blues Hog, but you can't preserve that color unless you wrap. That's why I'm a big proponent of wrapping. And I'll keep doing it. That is, unless I'm cooking like 6 or 8 racks and have no room to put them on a grate. Anyways, going to use the electric knife here to cut these all up. Going to see how they look on the inside and give them a taste. Well, let's take a look here. Nice little smoke ring. They certainly seem to look moist. We'll give them a taste. I'll spare you the gross sound effects and just leave you with the outtakes of all my thoughts.
Wow. Wow. Oh, man. Are they tender? Holy cow. I don't think I've even had ribs this good before in my life.
So, needless to say, I really enjoyed these ribs and the process was a lot of fun. But I gotta be honest, I can't say this method is better. It's just different. I mean, it does allow for more volume in the WSM, but as far as the difference in flavor, I just don't know. You know, unless I did a side-by-side cook with the same ingredients, process, and quality meat, I don't think I could say one way or another. You know, if the folks at Pit Barrel Cooker want to send me one so I can compare it, I'm not going to say no. Now, I know some of you might be asking how the rack that I used literally measures up to the Pit Barrel Cooker. Well, the gateway rack in the WSM stands 1/4 of an inch higher than the Pit Barrel Cooker's rebar does away from the charcoal grate. And if you take into account the respective lengths of the hooks, ribs of equal length hung in the same manner in both cookers would be 3/4 of an inch higher in the WSM. That's awfully close. I guess in the end, the bottom line is this. You can hang ribs in your WSM. You can also hang briskets, turkeys, pork butts, or anything else you can imagine like you could in the Pit Barrel Cooker if you get one of these racks. And you can also do what the PBC can't do, slow and low cooking because of a water pan. Not to mention that the WSM also has adjustable vents, 2 cooking grates instead of 1, an access door, and a way to refuel it that's easy as opposed to having to take everything out. Now, I'm not knocking the PBC. I think it's great, it's simple and puts out good food, and I wouldn't mind owning one. I just can't see how someone would be torn about spending $45 on an investment that could make one of these two do the jobs of both. Maybe down the road I'll be able to do a comparison of both of these two side by side, actually literally side by side, but who knows. Well, those are my thoughts. Let me give a special shout out to Justin for letting me use some of his footage, and a very extra special shout out to Bigg from Bigg's Home Cookin', who happens to own a PBC and took the time out of his busy schedule to measure the whole thing so I could do this comparison. And Lyle, if you actually happen to see this, I know you hate attachments, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this now that you know what it can do. Anyways, I hope y'all learned something. I know I certainly did. Join me next time on the road to Ribtown, where I make mistakes and learn something so you don't have to. Thanks for watching, y'all.